the meaning's created by who watches it. I learn a lot from what people say, and I really believe that. So that said, your question though was about what I was thinking about. And I would say it was more about work and the people, but to me, it was also about the art of working between two places within one place, this area of the world, Queens, and looking for connections and contrasts. And food was a way, and work of doing that. So it was an opportunity for me to be observational, as you put it. I guess there is ethnographic is a very loaded term, but it is a film about culture and cultures. But it's also a chance to intervene as a filmmaker to make people conscious of the fact, or to remain conscious of the fact that the filmmaker has an opportunity to make art from observational work and to put them into play musically. And by that, I don't only mean the sound, but the rhythm of the film, right? It has a relationship to the themes. So for me, for example, one of the parts of the film that I'd thought about before I made it was the relationship of the momos, the dumplings made in a Nepali restaurant, to the tortillas made in a taco cart in Mi Mexico Lindo and Ana Puna Takali Kitchen, the two restaurants. And so they're different foods, but there is synergy between the work done and also the shapes and the way they look. And so that was it. And I think also for me, this was an opportunity to make a film. You use the term ethnographic, but where the workers participate. And so there's a lot of point of view shots, and that was by people being willing and wanting to wear cameras, small cameras, GoPros, um, as a way both to be able to be more observational, because intervene less physically in the place where I'm shooting, but also as a way to capture the movements and what they see when they work, and the people they interact with, including customers. But for me, this was a film about culture, in that sense, ethnography aspect, about art, about making art from documentary material, and food is a good place to look for those things, the contrasts and the connections among people. Yep.
Okay. Um, so I also wanted to ask about the 7 train, as it's referred to in your production company as well. How important is the train to you, or is it a reference more to the area? And what does it as a kind of institution mean to you and your filmmaking?
That's a great question. So my company, and this is a T-shirt, Seven Local Film, does take the name of the subway line that runs out to this part of New York City, that came to this part of Queens in the 1920s. In fact, I wouldn't say it's a great piece of art, but a very interesting mural in the post office here on 37th Avenue in Jackson Heights that has a depiction of this part of the world changing with the elevated line, the 7 coming out here, moving from farms to housing, from agrarian culture, rural culture, to really, at that time, a suburban culture, but connected to Manhattan. So the 7 train is very important for the identity of this part of the world across time, because today, of course, it's also the way in which people from all over the world come to be here, right? So it's a train between Manhattan and Queens, but it's also a train within Queens, and a train that people from all over the world. It's one of the spaces that not only creates this area, but where people mix. So the train is very important. Now, I want to say something that's, like, I think many people can understand this from various projects. Filmmakers will understand it particularly. Things never work out the way you plan. And it's always, I think it's always better, because you adapt, and there are opportunities even when there are problems. And initially, these were not the two places I intended to make this film about. It was very hard to get permissions from both the owners as well as from the workers to do this project. And there are all sorts of reasons why you could imagine. Would would you want your restaurant taped 24 hours in the case of the taco cart, in the case of Nepali restaurant, over a very long work day? And we went back for some other limited shoots in both places, more in in the Nepali restaurant and Annapurna Nepali kitchen. So, and there are questions of immigration, there are all sorts of things, anxieties, and things happened and fell through. In the end, it wound up being, both places wound up being under the 7 train. Initially, only one of the places I originally imagined would have been there. But of course, that was beautiful because the sound, the sense too of being able to show in a film that has no narration or titling, that we're in a similar area, tying them together. So, sonically, visually, also narratively. So it was kind of luck, but it's also very important because I think there's nothing more important than the 7 train for understanding the culture and the economy of this part of the world. So, and I just say the last thing I'll say is, the 7 has an express and a local version and iteration, different times of the day. And the stops that I use, 82nd Street and 74th Street, happen not to be express stops, but I also like the idea of the local, 7 local film, because I think all history, I'm trained as a historian initially, all culture can only be understood in its particularity, even if you want to understand things beyond that place, globally or comparatively or interactively. So the idea of the 7 local resonates with the way I think about making documentaries. So,
If you were to do this film again post-COVID, once everything is back to normal, what things do you think would be different, and what things do you think would remain the same?
That's a really great question. So let me talk about, I'm very close to both of these places. And even though I had eaten in both before, and particularly in the taco cart in Mexico Lindo, for a long time, I chose not to work in places where I had relationships that were very realized with the workers or the owners, because then you can't work. It's no longer a documentary. Documentaries are never objective, but you have to have some distance, right? Because otherwise you're participating in a way that it doesn't feel comfortable, and it's impossible to, I think, make the work. Now, of course, I'm very close with both places, the people, and I'm happy to say they've come to see the film, workers from the taco cart. I've shown it to my friends in the Nepali restaurant, and they like it, which makes me very happy. And they see things in the film that I didn't see, and also things that I would hope they would see, which is that it's about work. I mean, my point about that is, both of these places have come back, even in COVID times. They both had a dip, but so that's an interesting question. It is a story of resilience in an area where we know many businesses did not survive, or they've changed. I mean, the number of corporately owned franchises that have replaced locally owned businesses is devastating. Okay, I mean, there has been enterprise during this period, but it has not favored the culture that is here. But to me, I'm happy that, last night, Zoe, my partner, and I went to eat take food out from the Nepali restaurant, from Annapurna Nepali kitchen, and had a great meal. And they're struggling, but they're surviving. The taco cart is doing, I think, a little better, because of the nature of how it operates. It doesn't require people to come in and so on. So, and they've adapted. But so that's a good question. If I were to focus on these places, I think we would see difference between them. And we would also see, in that comparison, the price of COVID, the cost of COVID here. But I think also I would have to expand it and show in exterior shots and B-roll that what's going on beyond those places, where this work works very intensively between 2 particular places, because the neighborhood is different, but it's also very resilient.
Okay. And then this one's a bit broad. Might have to narrow it down a bit, but what do you think makes Queens unique from a filmmaking perspective?
Well, that's a tough question, because I think every place is unique. I do believe that. Okay, so I want to be clear about that. And anyone who, I know there are some friends here and some people who are acquaintances who know my work and my interests. I do love Queens, and I grew up in Brooklyn. Okay, I'm a native of Brooklyn. I've lived many places in between. When I returned to live in New York City, I chose to live not only in Queens, but in Jackson Heights, okay, because I'd gotten to know the area, actually through food, from eating. I was living in New Haven, Connecticut for a number of years, and would come down to New York, and colleagues of mine from different parts of the world who would come to Jackson Heights, eat in different places and different types of restaurants. I fell in love with the area, and so there is a uniqueness, which is, of course, the density of the diversity of this city is particularly notable here. And there's something else about it. And I made a previous film, which you were kind enough to screen also on site at the Queens Historical Society, Between Neighborhoods. And one of the arguments made in that film is that, the whole notion of an outer borough, and I grew up in a so-called outer borough, Brooklyn, especially before Brooklyn was as gentrified as it is now, or parts of it are. I didn't come from that part of Brooklyn anyway. But there was a notion of living somewhere else, living in your identity was defined in terms of the urban geography and politics in relationship to Manhattan. But if you were to look at the world today and look at the world of New York City today, Queens is the center of the city globally. If you think of what Manhattan once was, right, in terms of commerce, culture. The film I made called Between Neighborhoods was about the Unisphere, and it's a complex film both in look and in arguments. But it's also an experimental documentary. It's feature length. But one of the optimistic arguments is that you take Robert Moses's globe, built for the '64 World's Fair, as a symbol of the power of the United States to modernize the so-called third world, as he was modernizing a so-called outer borough. Now, really, it's really like the Statue of Liberty, because where the Statue of Liberty has become mainly a tourist attraction, and the Lower East Side has become not only but a site for gentrified, wealthy urban culture, right? At least that's the trend. That's not the whole Lower East Side, but that is the trend. Queens really has the vibrancy of what makes a city, which is working people, cosmopolitanism, on a vernacular level, an everyday level. So, I guess that's, to me, Queen. I feel like I'm living at the center of New York City and the center of a global city in this period by living in Queens. But I do believe every place is unique.
Of course.
We're here.
So I guess next we should talk about what's coming up next for you, and what are the challenges that you're going to be facing while working on it.
Thank you. So I have a couple different projects, but I'm going to talk about the one that is the most real, and also the most real in front of me, because I've been working on it a lot lately. And I don't know if my producer is here today. He might be. I can only see about 4 of you, but my producer, Gaspar Gonzalez, and I are working on a film that is a more conventional documentary in how it is narrative. Meaning, I want to just say something here. Sorry, I get a little professorial, but this film, Small Kitchens, is definitely not a conventional narrative film. Every film has a narrative, right? Because unless it's interactive, which happens, but these days. But if it's a film, a video, it has a beginning and end, and the filmmaker has decided what they want to put between those points. So there's decisions made about the order in which you see things. But this film, called Our Neighborhood, I tend to have titles that are the same, even though they're about different things, is a film about the US government's secret use of television, mainly in the 1960s, to oppose the Cuban Revolution throughout Latin America, all different genres of TV programs, from news programs, telenovelas, serials, dramatic series, educational TV, to present idea of the United States that could counteract the idea of the Cuban Revolution as a road to modernity, and also mobilizing the image of John F. Kennedy initially as a counter Castro, someone who also was young and was for progress, and rather than just containing communism, for some sort of sense of modernization. Many of the themes actually Unisphere embodies. And if you like, I can show a teaser that I have just worked on, and had a great assistant editor who did a lot of editing, fine tuning on it, Amos Damroth. And I'd be happy to show it to you. It's like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Would that be
Sure.
cool?
Yeah.
All right. So I think I can do this. Let me see if I can. Oops. You don't see my screen now, do you?
No, but I should have given you screen sharing permissions.
You did, and
Okay.
I will make that happen. So this is a teaser, and what a teaser is, as some people probably know very well, is not a it's not a trailer. It's not the it's not, it doesn't, can't tell you the story of the entire film. It's a sample from the film, and I'm just going to run it right now.
And we can see it now.
Okay. Wait, you can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start it over. There we go.
We were coiled from the word propaganda. It was a term that denoted prevarication, underhanded kinds of techniques to get ideas across. And the people of my country will share in this program. Jack Kennedy was magic in Latin America. He was a superstar. Anything about Kennedy was going to be very popular, very usable overseas. The whole purpose of television, and broadly speaking, USIA, was to get information out. Somebody else can call it propaganda if it goes against their mindset, or if they have some kind of idea that the United States government, speaking officially, should not be putting certain factual information out, information that supports their overall policy. And you want to call that propaganda? Well, it's propaganda.
Do you feel that Panorama Panamericano was news, was journalism, or was propaganda?
I know, Spanish, number 94, take one. Dale estas palabras del señor Kennedy.
I thought it was entertainment.
Sí. Música. Tintán y su carnal Marcelo.
¿Y sabes lo que yo escucho? Laura, yo te quiero casi tanto como en la clínica.
Culturally, it was the one that could always be reinforced, even at a time of political hostility.
I started TV, Martin.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Hola, ¿cómo están?
And you don't think that was propaganda?
It was not propaganda the way I developed it. It became propaganda. Propaganda, actually, in its Latin derivatives, is a very positive word. It means promotion.
Now it's restarting. There we go.
Okay, yeah. Great. So anyway, that's what I'm working on mostly now.
And what's difficult about working on it, especially during a time of COVID? Has that impacted anything?
You know what? I'll say this: the part it's impacted maybe the most is not having face-to-face interaction with some collaborators. That energy is good and helps keep you going. But I have to say, for this project, a lot of the research has been done. It came out of work I published about when I was more of a writing scholar. The archival footage, enough has been obtained to begin some of the work. We shot these interviews a few years ago. Colleagues of mine at a company in Queens, Long Island City, Pickerel Pie Entertainment, Dewey Thompson is the director of it. Chris Torella is the associate director of it. Shot these interviews. So we have a lot. So in some ways, one of the reasons, Jaron, I'm turning to this project is it does involve me getting out and shooting. That it's allowed me to concentrate on a project that should be prioritized. But now, really, I have the blinders on because of COVID to work on. So, and I will say one more thing. I hope there'll be some time for Q&A, and I'm willing to stay beyond if people want to the hour. I know Zoom from teaching doesn't necessarily knock us off, but one thing I do want to say is that in addition to saying thank you to Queens Historical Society and hoping people donate them, if you want to know more about several projects, join our mailing list on our website. And if you want to donate tax deductibly to our neighborhood on its page, there's an opportunity to do that. And there's also an opportunity to purchase one of these beautiful t-shirts that I'm wearing and Zoe's wearing. But mainly, I hope that you just stay connected with the projects, including the evolution of small kitchens. But I'd love to hear any questions or reactions from anybody here.
And we'll give people a couple of moments to type up some questions. Feel free to use the chat window to send them in.
Chat window myself, okay.
And I'll use this time to talk a bit about what the Queens Historical Society also has coming up. If you guys are interested in more of our programs, if you're interested in food, like we've been seeing today, we're going to be having an In Your Neighborhood program, The Art of the Guyanese Pine Tart, which will be hosted by one of the Queens Historical Society's graphic designers. That will be on January 16th at 2:30. So get signed up for that if you're interested in more. And then we will be hosting more digital programs throughout the rest of the season and even into spring. Just check our website for more information about that. And also on the website, you can join the Queens Historical Society and become a member and help support us. All right. We got a question right here from Shira.
Oh, great.
Let's see.
That's a local viewer, a neighbor.
Why did you choose this verite style versus a more traditional talking heads documentary style with interviews?
Good question, because I was interested in capturing work, not explaining it. I was interested, and also that's a really important question. And also, I mean, I see this as a work of documentary art, and this is what I was interested in: the rhythm between these sites. Every sound in the film is diegetic, fancy word for saying it's associated with exactly what you see. So the editing had to be on the rhythm of the action, and also the rhythm of the sounds, which may or may not have this may not have been the ideal way to appreciate all of that. But so a way to turn that around is I was driven as much by certain formal audiovisual ambitions about art as by the content of the social dimension that we see. So for me, it was never a possibility to do it any other way. In fact, the key moment was when I decided to try to have the workers participate by wearing cameras, which, it's very hard to establish that relationship, especially if you are starting from a somewhat distant personal perspective, relationship necessarily. So, but that to me would take it to even another place. I could remove myself more and put them in it more in terms of seeing what they see. So for me, it doesn't interest me doing that kind of work. Someone else can do it. I'd like to watch it, but it's not the kind of films I make. And even the film I just showed a teaser for, Our Neighborhood, the only talking heads in the film are people who actually were involved in making it. There are no I'm the historian. I mean, I think this filmmaker should express their interpretation through the way they edit a film and also the way they write a film. But I try to limit the titling to things that explain what people are looking at, the archival footage in that film, or who's speaking. But the people who speak are not experts. They are participants. It's evidence itself. So that's the kind of way I work. Yeah.
And I had a personal question of when you were filming, was it usually you in those small spaces, or would you always hand the camera off?
Okay, so in the taco cart, we did a practice run and wound up using some of the footage for a very unusual reason, or not unusual, unexpected. I'll tell you about in a second. We had a bunch of cameras inside the cart, okay, GoPros. And then externally, I had a larger camera to take B-roll, exterior shots, some of the shots through the windows and things like that. So only one person was ever wearing one of those cameras, and there were like 5 others. That's in the taco card, because you also have to work with the site you have. In the Nepali restaurant, in Annapurna Takali kitchen, in the film, it has a sign that says Kanchenjunga. That was the old name of it. The owners and workers who also were the same, who let me in to film it, had already changed the name now, and that's why it's thanked as such in the credits. But that's what the awning said when we shot there, Kanchenjunga, 7224 Roosevelt Avenue, to just be specific. There, it was a different kind of situation. You know, we had the GoPros, but I could get in closer with my camera at times, and it was actually necessary to do for some things. So it really depended. And in Taco Cart, we also had with someone doing external sound. We had a sound person. In the Nepali restaurant, I did the sound as well. So it's quite difficult. I had an assistant, but I didn't have a sound person. I had a sound person for the Taco Cart. And you know, the problem with the idea of using the GoPros was, to get back to Shira's question, and to how you introduced the discussion. It is in many ways, at least the cinematography is observational. The editing is analytic, but meaning I think I make people conscious that, you know, it's a bunch of short takes. They're not long takes like a Frederick Weissman film, if that means anything. We just like his film about Jackson Heights, for example. We just look for a long period of time at one place or a set of people. But the thing about it is, you know, the cameras kept stopping. You know, they malfunctioned, or they ran out of juice. We had external batteries, so I'd have to go in and deal with it. So when we did the practice shoot, I was only working with a couple of cameras. When we did the actual shoot, we had all these cameras. Not only did it creates the opportunity for more malfunctions, but also, and me having to get into the truck to fix things or to check if things are working, because we're trying to control them with an iPhone, didn't always work. But the cameras were in each other's shot a lot, mm-hmm. which even if you think you've diagrammed it correctly, and we thought went into this, it didn't work out. So the editing had to take into account that. And in terms of Annapurna Takali kitchen, it benefited because it was shot months later, and I benefited from all the errors made being the taco cart. So basically, I was not in the kitchen shooting. I was working a larger camera outside, externally, but frequently had to intervene. But you know, in terms of the one thing about the Nepali site is, one of my ideas, getting back to the role of food, as I mentioned earlier, was this connection between the making of the dumplings, when this was going to be a Pakistani. When one of the restaurants was going to be a Pakistani place, it was the making of the naan and intercutting with the tortillas, the idea of using this as a way to connect the places and also think about these shapes, right? And the action of making these different foods, but workers doing them in different places, different types of foods, but that have a synergy in terms of how they're made and how they look. If, you know, well, the day we shot at the Nepali restaurant, they didn't make momos. And this was, to me, I've been thinking for months, we're going to have these. So I actually went back and shot that on the day when they made them. But something else happened there, because I got to know the folks well. And I told you that Zoe and I ate there last night, or from there last night. You know, you develop a relationship with them. And because I shot there over more days, they began to, my friends began to ask me, do you want me to do that again? And I was like, whoa, this is over. You know, this is no longer a documentary, and I stopped shooting. I began to have lunch with them that day, and I was like, it's over. So anyway, that's a long way of hopefully answering your question about what it was like to shoot in each place.
All right, I think that'll transition into, I think, what will be our last question from Alan. That the people, you said you knew the people, but not too well, and that they seemed quite natural and unfazed, not playing to the camera. Was that all shot in one day, or to prevent the familiarization?
The end. So that's, I think in some ways I might have begun to answer it. So in terms of the taco cart, where I've been eating regularly, but it's so busy, as you can see, all the time, I knew those people. And they may have known me, because now I know them and how they relate to their customers, but we didn't know each other the way we know each other now. And so in the taco cart, yes, doing it, we basically went for a brief practice shoot after we got permissions, then we went back and wired the truck and shot, it's open almost 24 hours, shot an entire day. Okay. And the only other shoot I did there was external shots one night waking up because I wanted to see the cart move, pulling out, and I hadn't gotten that. And so there, yes, we benefited from that. In the case of the Nepali restaurant, we benefited from that initially. But once the relationship we shot over a couple of other days, or I did follow-up shoots on my own, it didn't work anymore because we liked each other, you know, and so I stopped shooting. Also, I felt I had enough stuff anyway, and but yeah, I couldn't make the film anymore and feel like I was making a documentary. So yeah, so it was crucial. It was crucial. Yeah.
Okay. To answer the other question, will this be on display at the museum? No, we are just broadcasting it for today. However, we are going to be keeping a recording of this Q&A. So we'll be posting that on our website for people to look back on. And then we also had someone ask the name of the restaurant, just to verify.
I'll give the name of both. So I'll tell you where they are too, which might be as important, especially because on Roosevelt Avenue, there are many taco carts. This one is called Mi Mexico Lindo, my beautiful Mexico, tacos Mi Mexico Lindo. And now, a few weeks ago, I noticed a truck across the street with the same name. And I asked my friends, now we are friends at Mi Mexico Lindo, hey, have you guys expanded? They said, no, someone just opened a taco cart, because this is a very good taco cart using the name. So this one, okay, is under the 7 train where Glean Street runs into Roosevelt Avenue. It would be it's in front of a bank, I think Banco Popular. And it is, so it would be like, and Glean is a diagonal street that kind of runs into 83rd and Roosevelt. So you go to that intersection and you'll see it. And hopefully from my film, you'll recognize it. That would be the southeast corner. 7 train would be running that direction out east to Flushing. And in terms of Annapurna Tikali Kitchen, it is at 7224 Roosevelt Avenue. So I just will give you that address. And yeah, so.
All right. Well, thank you, Seth, so much for talking about your film and your process. And I want to thank everybody who came out today to come join us and watch.
And I'd like to say thank you again, and please get in touch, or stay in touch, for those of you who already know about what you're up to and what I'm up to. Okay, thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.